I'm going to show you how I make my white panels. White panels in the 737 cockpit, like the fuel panel, hydraulic panel, generator panel, and I guess the airflow panel, so like the bleeds, the packs, the recirc fans. So the basic concept behind this is just cutting out the panel, layering it with masking tape and paint. I'm going to be making the airflow panel, I guess what you could call it. So first, I'm going to cut out the main shape. Then I'm going to use blue painter's tape and mask the areas where there's the white backlit lines. Then I'm going to paint it black. Then I'm going to cover the black panel with masking tape, and then I'm going to engrave where the black areas are that will have the text, and I'm going to remove all of the excess tape, and then I'll spray paint it white. Then I'll remove the masking tape bits and then engrave the text. So now I'm test fitting, see if the panel will fit and where it will go on the acrylic. So I'm using an Ohmtech K40, and I'm using K40 Whisper, which you have to have Inkscape installed. So I use Onshape, and then I export the panels as a DXF, and then configure everything in Inkscape, and then send it to the computer. So I'm just aligning everything with the acrylic, so that's the bottom right hand corner, and then I can click this and it'll move to the top left. So that'll fit. So something with this method is you have to make sure that the panel is in the same spot every time, or that it's lined up if you choose to move the sheet that you cut the panel out of, and you just like use a wooden piece or something to mark out where the panel should be, and then place it down and then do all the work. I have this wood piece that I'll use sometimes to kind of, you know, trace out to see where I need to put the panels, and I'll do that if this somehow moves, and so I'm going to use some masking tape to tape it down to the bed. And if that somehow moves or I'm unhappy with the positioning, then I'll go do this piece of wood and then trace out the panel and place it down so that everything's aligned properly. I'm just going to use some masking tape real quick, tape the panel down. I have my acrylic tape down, follow the masking tape, and just over time with testing and trial and error, I have perfect settings for power and how many times it should pass through. So this is 3mm acrylic without paint, and so I've just found that 16 setting, whatever that is, 16% is the best. And so that's what I have set. I have its vector cut, I've set it to 2, and 10mm a second is what I think is best. Even though the preview on here is not very accurate, I think it should be fine since the original Inkscape file is perfect. So even though this looks crooked, I'm pretty sure it should be fine. Now it's time to cut. I'm going to take note of the position of this, just in case. And I have air assist, which I installed myself, and this tube just perfectly fit through the track that came with the engraver. And so I'm really happy with how that turned out. It looks stock. And then I just found this on Thingiverse that works pretty well. It's really jank. The screw obviously is way too long, but it works. And then that just feeds through down to pump. And there we go. I have the water cooling down there, water reservoir, and then all of the tubing that goes back there. And then ventilation goes up, out to the patio. So I think we're ready to cut. Okay, I'm wearing my mask so my voice is kind of a bit muffled. Now I'm just gonna wait for the ventilation to clear all the smoke out, or else I'm gonna open the lid and just get blasted with acrylic fumes. And if you've never dealt with acrylic, even just cutting it with a saw, the smell is absolutely brutal. So I'm just gonna wait here a bit. The next step will be to kind of cover that area right there with masking tape, and then I will start that set of engraving. So then we'll be left with a strip of tape right there and right there, and then we'll do all of the painting, all of the masking, and then we'll peel everything off, and that bit will be bare acrylic, like in the real plane, so you'll be able to see those lines. I guess in the meantime, I can launch Inkscape, and so another reason to keep note of those coordinates is if I ever have to relaunch the program, then I know exactly where to put the design. But usually what I can do is just modify it in Inkscape and then click reload, and that will keep the panel exactly where it is. I'm gonna wait for Inkscape to load, and I'll be back. So I'm just gonna browse for the document, and I have it set up where I can access my computer files upstairs where I design everything from this laptop. I'm gonna open that up, and I've already grouped everything, so all I have to do is hide all of the text black areas so that it only gets rid of the tape where it needs to be, which is right there. So I'll go over to layers, and then all I'm going to do is disable black areas. So that's going to get rid of all of the blue, so then we'll do a vector engrave, and we won't have to worry about any of the other black areas showing, because it's going to be the same concept later, which is how we're going to get white everywhere else and only black where the text is. Now it's only showing those blue areas, which will be the white lines, so we can save it, go back into A40 Whisper, and then reload. Alright, so here we go. You can see all the blue areas, everywhere else are hidden, just those. So now it's ventilated enough. So I'm just going to add masking tape in this area, plenty of masking tape, so there's no way that it can't get everything. So I'll be back when I've applied that. And since this tape will be on the entire process of this panel, I'm just going to let it sit here so it has time to adhere to the panel, so it ensures that it will not come off. And in the meantime, I can just set the power setting, so I have it set 7%, and that's it. That's probably been long enough. I had to redo the tape, but no chance of it missing anything. So it's set to 7, air assist, water, everything's good. I'm gonna close the lid back up, go back in here, and once again, since this is the only blue areas, I can do vector engrave, and it will only do that. I have it set to 1 at 20 meters or 20 millimeters a second, so we can start the engraving process. Alright, that was all it took. Let's open it back up, and we should be able to just peel the tape off, and that tape will be left behind. Absolutely perfect. Exactly what I was going for. Very happy. And so then we can remove that at the very end, and we'll have just bare white acrylic that the light can bleed through. Perfect. Very happy with that. So there we go. So now this will be spray painted black twice, and then a masking tape will be placed over the entire panel, and then same thing here but with all the black areas. Peel the tape off and then engrave the text. So I'll be back when this is spray painted black. So now I have the black panel, 2 coats of black, and there's not really any light that bleeds through, so I know that it's good. So now, because there's so much, or so many areas that are black, I'm just going to cover the entire thing in blue masking tape. The reason I'm doing blue is because it doesn't leave any residue behind. I don't know if the tan or the beige paint or tape will do the same, but I know this works, so that's what I'm going to use, and I'll be back when I'm done with that. Just like before, I've covered the entire panel in blue masking tape, painter's tape, and it's okay if you overlap the painter's tape, completely fine. And I just made sure that I place the tape around those initial white lines so everything comes off nicely. So I'm just going to let this tape just kind of adhere to this a little bit, and then I cut all the extras off with an X-Acto knife. Then I will do the same thing I did with those lines on here. Then I'll spray paint everything white, and then peel everything, and then engrave. It's good to just cut out a slot of the tape so you can easily lift it from your cutout. So I just chose to do this slot where the enunciators will go. Okay, so here's what the panel looks like with all the tape, including the bottom pieces that we put on at the very beginning. It looks great from a distance, but there's always going to be a bit of paint that bleeds through the tape, and so you get these rough edges, which isn't the best, but things lined up. Hopefully it turns out great. So I'll get back to you when the text and everything is engraved. Since this is kind of the final step, especially with these white panels, because of how long they take just to get to this point. So seeing the text start appearing, it's pretty nerve-wracking. It's looking great though. Okay, so 41 minutes later, around that time, 45, I don't know. Now I'm starting to see some things that aren't perfect, but that's okay. I'm happy with it nonetheless. That's a little too close to the edges. It's kind of messy over here, but from a distance, in a cockpit, wouldn't think anything of it. So there we go. Now I'll show you a picture, or I'll be back with it at some point. So there we go.